So the Pentagon just issued a warning. This was just a few days ago. They issued a warning stating that possible wars may be fought on U.S. soils in the near future, stating that increased nuclear attacks could be possible on U.S. soil, and stating that Iran's nuclear capability is growing and they've test launched missiles that could reach the United States. So our video topic today is going to be long-term sustainability and are you ready for war on U.S. soil? Let's go. So today I want to talk about the possibility of war on our soil and long-term preparedness and sustainability. So with this article, and I've been reading into this a little bit more, about the Pentagon releasing the probability or possibility of war on our soil in the future. And they're talking about Iran's capabilities to reach our soil with nuclear missiles. They've been doing some test firing on missiles and they're able to shoot out a long ways. They're able to reach our soil now and possibly undetected. They're talking about China ramping up its nuclear capabilities as well. And with a lot of these threats coming in, they're talking about the possibility and the probability of war on our soil. This is something to take very seriously. And so what we want to get into today is sustainability and what if you were in a situation where it's long-term. Say the grid goes down, power goes out long-term, supply chains are broke up long-term. So we're going to talk a little bit about plans you can put together and ways to prepare. An area that I see a lot of people in the preparedness community fail is stopping at stockpiling. I see a lot of people talking about stockpiling and putting away food on their pantry shelves. You see the loaded pantry shelves, and you see stacks of water or barrels of water outside, and they're set up with food and water and a few things, maybe some medical supplies and a few other things. But what happens when that runs out? What happens in a scenario like this and power's out, your grid's down for long term, and the trucks stop running, supplies are no longer coming into your local stores? What do you do then? What happens when your food begins to run out, when your water begins to run out? The supplies that you have, the filters become clogged up. What happens then? That is kind of the big problem that I see with a lot of people in the preparedness community. They feel like that's the end of the road, is stockpiling, and it's not. That's the beginning. That is step one to all of this. So we're going to get into step two, which is procuring and being able to resupply and get more gear, food, and the things we need. So one of the biggest things that I see that's overlooked is building skills. And skills are vast. You can learn a lot of skills in a lot of different directions and a lot of different categories. And so many of them will apply to being prepared. And so I see this getting overlooked so much because the one biggest thing is with skills is it's just an investment of time for the most part. It doesn't cost you much to learn skills, but it takes time and a little bit of energy. But this is one of the cheapest, most overlooked things that I see people just kind of step over as they're putting their preparedness plan together. And I really think this takes a lot of focus. I think that learning to start fires primitive is truly crucial, because what happens when all of your fire starting gear runs out? Learning to boil water and make it safe, which isn't complicated, but you'd be amazed at how many people don't understand that basic concept. Trapping, hunting, fishing. If you've never caught a fish before and you're going to go out with a survival fishing kit and catch a fish, I just wish you the best of luck, because that is going to be a rough lesson to learn. Fishing is a skill. It's not always that difficult, but it can be. And so I recommend learning to do a lot of these things before you have to do them. So fishing, hunting, and trapping are three skills that I highly recommend, but especially the hunting and the trapping, they take a long time to learn. And so those are things I recommend people get into learning now to regenerate their food supplies, as well as building shelters, having long-term food preparation and storage plans, being able to take the food that you hunt, trap, and fish for, and being able to smoke that or preserve it so that it lasts a long time. having backup processes for refrigeration. So I have a small refrigerator freezer combo. It's actually an e-cooler, which the thing runs in eco mode very efficient. I just want to touch on this for a minute because this is one of those long-term preparedness things that I think it's overlooked, and that is you're not going to be able to run your refrigerator in your house unless you have a large solar system with everything else. But I have a couple of solar generators, and that cooler freezer will run a long time, and it only pulls like a few watts on idle, and when it comes up, it only pulls like 60 watts. So that being said, that is an option for keeping things cold temporarily while I need to process things or eat things. So that could work very well. And also, talking about food preparation and storage, there are other ways like canning and some of the older ways of putting things up. I mean, you have pressure cooking and canning, and some people are very successful at that. Dehydrating is another one. We're pretty big on dehydrating. We run our dehydrator quite a bit. We dehydrate quite a few different things. And, being able to freeze dry things is another one. I think freeze drying is an excellent option. Although I personally have not bought a freeze dryer yet. It is on the list eventually. It's just expensive. We have not dove into that yet. But that is on the list as part of our preparedness plan. We do want to get a freeze dryer. So the next thing I want to talk about is raising animals. And a lot of people, as soon as they hear that, they think you have to have a lot of land. You have to have large space, fenced in areas. It's not the case. We have a 5-acre farmstead, and it's not very large, but we can do a lot here. But even if you live in town, so we used to live on a 1/4-acre lot at the edge of town, and we raised chickens. We had a garden, and it actually looked very nice. We had a decorative. It was pretty nice, and we got eggs, and we raised our gardens. And with that being said, you can do these things in town. Meat rabbits are another one. So if you raise chickens for eggs, you grow a garden, and you raise meat rabbits, it only takes 2 breeding trios to create 400 to 450 pounds of edible meat for meat rabbits. So it doesn't take a lot of space. We built some small hutches. I'll show that in this video. We'll put it up. But we built some hutches and have some meat rabbits. We just recently added a few more. But even if you have a small backyard, if you had some chickens that lay you eggs, you have some rabbits to raise for meat, and then you grow a garden, you could sustain a small family pretty well year round. That's just something to think about for part of your long-term preparedness plan. Another one is renewable energy. We kind of talked about solar generators, and some of those things are good options to be thinking about. That stuff has come down a lot in price. Solar generators are not as expensive as they used to be. And, the real goal is to have the whole house on solar, but even at that point, you may lose your system if it's tied into the grid. If you had a solar flare or something happen that backs it up, you had a nuclear strike and it sent an electromagnetic pulse back to the grid, it could kill your system. That's where I would prefer to have some of that stuff like backup solar generators put in a place that are safe from that EMP strike or something else. So rainwater catch systems are another one. If you're looking at a long-term renewable resource, it rains everywhere, even in the desert. So think about having rainwater catch systems. In areas where it rains more, you may not need as big of a system. You may be able to use smaller tanks. In an area where it doesn't rain as much, you may want larger tanks. But that is something to research, and it's a good way to have renewable water. Let's talk just a little bit about defense and security. So I've been listening to other people in the preparedness community, listen to some other people on YouTube, and some of the concepts, I hear so many different ideas out there, and I listen to the different concepts. And to me, there's so many mixed ideas. Some people say you should have a bazillion guns and 2 bazillion rounds of ammunition put away and all of this. And other people say, you shouldn't even have a firearm or worry about it. Other people say you should just have a basic hunting rifle because you're not part of the military, and the military is never coming to back you. You don't have supply drops. You will never be able to engage in war and all of this. And I don't agree entirely with that concept. Back in World War II, there was a statement from a general in Japan that talked about invading our country, and he said it could never happen because from behind every blade of grass there would be a barrel pointed at their head. And that concept still rings true. And so to put away some ammunition and to have a firearm, but the bigger thing is to get training with that firearm. And that's really what I want to kind of impose in this idea, is that you should have some training. Everybody, including me, should go to the range and spend some time with that firearm. I like to spend as much time shooting as I can. It's a little costly, so there are other options like 22 and some stuff you can run through your ARs that helps you save a little bit of money, but everybody should get to the range and train. Everybody should go through some training. There are a lot of good places out there that offer some tactical training. I think, with CQB training becoming more available, there are YouTube videos out there on CQB training, close quarters battle, how to pie a room, how to engage at close range, and how to secure your home. Those things are, to me, they're priceless. There's some training out there you can get that will increase your level and your ability to the point to where you run a chance of being able to outmaneuver and outgun somebody or multiple people with a little to no training, or even people who may have some training. Obviously, the more time you put in with your firearm. So to me, that's valuable when you look at these scenarios where you get sometimes multiple people breaking into somebody's home and somebody with a firearm deters them. Just imagine if that was a band of people breaking into your home to steal your supplies or to harm your family during a crisis. What if some of those people had previous military training or experience? Or what if we were being attacked on our soil and had to fend some people off from our home? Do you just lay down and take it? In my opinion, no, you don't. You pick up your rifle and you fight for your family, and that's what you do. So the idea that you're not going to defend yourself with a firearm in those kind of scenarios is just kind of crazy to me. I can't imagine not picking up your firearm and defending your family or your home or your supplies, the things you put away for your family. So get a firearm, specifically a semi-automatic type of firearm that takes magazines. Learn how to run that gun and train with it. There is a lot of good places out there offering training, and get in there and do that. Same thing with your handgun. If you're a concealed carry, get out there and do some classes, spend some range time, and get good with that concealed carry. To me, that is invaluable training. Those are more skills that you can add to your bag of skills that you may need in those times of crisis. With that being said, we have to lend a little bit of attention to this as a possibility. And for most of us that are really into preparedness, this is already something that's been in the back of our mind for a while anyway. And a lot of us have already set up for it. But for all of you that are just getting into it or haven't really dove into the more long-term or sustainable concept, I highly recommend you get into it and start thinking that way. Sustainability is key when you're talking about long-term survival. Just having some of those basic things put aside, that's great, but that's only a short-term plan. So coming up with plans is more crucial so that you have a go-to, because the things that we practice and prepare are the things we'll fall back on when those crises hit. So if you have a defense plan and your family knows what to do in a time of crisis, that training is what they're going to fall back on. It's the same thing if you have a go plan. If you have bags set up and you have a go plan, if a crisis hits your immediate area and you have to get out, you've already trained for that. Everybody knows what to do and they do it. So don't overlook the strength that a plan could bring to your family. Having long-term plans, having some other backup plans, some skills, and being able to get out there and hunt, trap, fish, and do some of these other things could be life-altering or life-saving in those kind of scenarios. All right, well, I thank everybody for watching. And if you like this, go ahead and subscribe, hit the like, and stay tuned for more videos. Thanks for watching. If this is the kind of thinking that speaks to you, hit subscribe. I'll be covering gear, prepping systems, homestead tactics, and off-grid survival. Don't get caught off guard. Let's get ready together.